How about it, everybody? Welcome back to Harvey's Outdoor Adventures. Tonight we're going to be processing up a deer. It's been sitting in the cooler 2 or 3 days, letting the blood come off of it. And we're about to get started. I'm going to show y'all everything and just kind of show you how we do it. It's pretty basic, but it works real good. All right, y'all, I got the cooler pulled out here in the kitchen. And I just separate all the meat into the sink here. And next to it, I got my knife and a couple bowls. This one will be hamburger. This will be steaks and roast, stuff like that. And then behind me, I got the grinder. My wife's going to be running it. And then right next to it, we're going to have the scale. And we put our meat in vacuum seal bags. I found that it lasts longer in the freezer, makes it taste better. Don't get no freezer burnt flavor to it. So y'all stick around. We're about to get started.
Wave at the camera. Say, hey, YouTube.
Tell them we're getting started.
What we doing? Are we cutting up a deer? Are we cutting up a deer?
Yeah.
You're so sweet. Say good luck, Daddy.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Alright, y'all, this here's a piece of back strap. I cut it down just to make it a little more manageable. You see, this is the back side, what will be facing the hide. This got all the sinew. You flip it over, all this is just meat. So, what I like to do with these is just cut them up into steaks. So this one's about 2 steaks long. What I'm going to do is cut it down the center. But I'm not going to cut all the way through it. I'm just going to cut down to that sinew. You see it's cut all the way through, but not to the sinew. And I'm going to take and fillet it like a fish and just get the majority of that sinew off. Just hold it like this and fillet it out like a fish. There's all your sinew. Flip it over and most of it's gone. Now it's just a trimming job. Just take it, cut majority of it off. I can throw my trimmings in a pile for the dogs. And take this stuff here like this and just anything you don't like, that'll go in the hamburger. It ain't got to be perfect. When it's all cooked up, you won't hardly know the difference. And a little bit here, we're going to take it off. Might just take off that whole side. All we're trying to do is just trim that top layer. It's got all the sinew on it. Then get over here to the side just to neaten it up, make it square. We'll just make a cut all the way down it. All that can be put in the hamburgers or jerky, whatever you want to do with it. We'll come over here, do the same to this side. It's got a little bit on it. We'll take it, trim that side up too. Make sure there's none on the back. There's a little bit. Take it and just cut that top layer. Like that. And this don't take long, but it makes a big difference in the end when you got all of it off and you're not having to chew through it for 10 minutes when you're trying to eat your steak. So it's worth taking the time and just cutting all these little pieces off. So ain't none of it going to waste. It's all going to go in a hamburger basically. In there you won't never know the difference. Something like that. And you can see this is pale. It's been sitting in a little bit of water, but I don't have no way to keep it dry, so that's the way I do it. And you can see it's still pretty thick, and a lot of people might like that. But to make it cook better, more evenly, what I like to do is just split it down the middle, and that makes 2 smaller steaks, but it's plenty enough if you got size to go along with it. It just helps it cook more evenly, and you don't have to cook it nowhere near as long. Just like that, you got 2 perfectly good steaks. Throw them in a steak pile and get on with the rest of it. Alright y'all, here's a big piece of the ham. Like I said, most of this was deboned while the deer was hanging. But what I like to do with these, you can either cut roast or steaks out of them. You won't be able to tell the difference between that and a piece of backstrap by the time you're done with it. But you see these, I don't know if you can see it real well, but there's a line runs right here separating the muscle groups. So we're just going to follow that and split it all out. And that'll let you, if you want steaks, you can get the steaks out of it, or you can just separate all the muscle groups out just to get the different types of roasts. And generally you get about 4 or 5 roasts just off the hams if you don't get steaks. So you do like that right there. You see how it's splitting apart? Just keep following that seam, and eventually it'll just start separating from itself, and then you're left with a manageable piece. And like that there's a secondary piece there. And some of the stuff you can just run your fingers through it like that and it'll split right off. It's just nice to have a knife to work through it. And just like that. All that'll probably end up being hamburger more than likely. But this is a nice big roast.
You want these?
And just like this, you split it here, you can fold it out. And you see it's got all this connective tissue in here. So all we're going to do is just keep separating till we get down to just one piece. Like that there, that'll go in the hamburger. Got another one on this side. It'll go down in the hamburger. And now we're just left with this connective tissue. I'm just do just like we did on the back strap, cut majority of this off. It's alright if you leave a little bit. But other than that, that's one roast. That'll do probably a family of 4. If you put it in the crock pot, add your vegetables to it. So I'll just show y'all how I trim it. And you see that piece there, I got all the trimmings off of it, but there is a decent piece of meat on the back. So I'll just throw that in the hamburger and you'll never know that was there. By the time it gets mixed up with everything else, you'll be just fine. So if it's your first time, you leave a little bit of meat, don't worry about it. Just unless it's a big piece of connective tissue, sinew, you want to try to trim that off. But if you got just a little piece like that, it's got a decent amount of meat on it, I'll just throw it in the hamburger and call it good. So don't tell nobody and nobody will know. Won't nobody ever say nothing about it. I see a lot of meat get wasted just because they don't want that tissue in there, and it don't make a difference to me. Now I'm just kind of rolling that back. Shows me what's left of that tissue. And you see there's a decent bit of meat there, but it ain't as much as you might think. Now roll on back to the other side. We'll catch it up over there. Just work your way around it. So doing this will help it fall apart in your crock pot or in your pan, however you decide to cook it. Like I say, it's worth taking the time just to go through it. And you see this piece was on the other side. Now we rolled it over here. We're just going to keep on with it. Just work just underneath of it. And if you can work the edges where it's round, get those broke loose first and get yourself to a spot where you got a flat working area, it makes it a lot easier just to cut right underneath it, because you know your knife's flat. It ain't really meant to cut round things. And a real sharp knife helps get closer to that connective tissue sinew. See, there's a lot of meat on that, but that really ain't a lot of sinew. So what I'll do for my hamburger, I'll just take this, anything's going in it, and I'll just cut it up into little strips, about 1 inch wide, maybe 1.5 inches. Just something big enough, make it easier on the grinder. See, like that, all that right there is mostly just tissue, so I'll just throw that into the dog food pile. But the rest of this is mostly meat, so I'll cut it off and throw it in the hamburger. Something like that. You see, we got most of this stuff worked off of here. It ain't got to be pretty, it ain't got to be perfect, it's just got to taste good. Mostly what we're going for here. Yeah. And of course, like I said, that'll feed a lot of people. We probably don't need that much, so I'm gonna do, I'll cut it in half. I can split it long ways. And that'll give me 2 decent sized roasts. Or if you'd like, you could do like we did on the back strap, fillet it in half, and then that'd give you 4 decent steaks. But that's how I separate my muscle groups, trim it up, make it look pretty. Makes it eat a lot better after the fact. Put it in the bowl. Alright, we're about to start grinding up this hamburger meat. I used to add fat to mine, but I got away from it here about a year, maybe 2 ago. I used to do 25% pork fat, and if I couldn't find that, I'd do beef fat. Just do, I think I used to do 30% beef. But I got away from it. It has a cleaner taste, doesn't leave that film in your mouth. And I think that's about it. That's really the only reason I got away from it. It's good for grease. You don't have to add oil or nothing to it if you do add the fat. And if you're doing sausage, I do add fat. I usually like to do like a 50-50 blend of like a Boston butt or something. I'll add that in with my my hamburger meat, and that's how I make my sausage. It's about a 50-50 Boston butt to hamburger that I'm making. So we're about to get started. Y'all hang on. hamburger meat.
Can you come here, baby?
Yeah. Just like that. Ain't no different on what you get from the store, except it was for free. Alright, we're about to vacuum seal up some of this hamburger meat. It's already got some bags pre-made here. It ain't nowhere near enough, but it'll get us started. I usually do a pound and a half. I just kind of eyeball it and I'll weigh it and measure it later. So, this is how we do it. About like that. Well, just like that, you can see it's sealed up on both ends. No air getting in, no moisture getting out. I like to squish it flat like that. Makes it stack better in the freezer. And then because it's so thin, makes it nice and easy to thaw out. Don't take nowhere near as long. So that's how we do it. I'm about to knock these out. Alright, we got our steaks and roast here, and this here's a homemade blend. My wife made it. We like to go ahead and pre-season it. That way when we put it in the freezer, and it'll help it just penetrate into the meat, because it's going to be sitting longer, and then as it freezes it'll penetrate too. Make little micro cuts all in it. So I'm going to put this in here, and then we'll get to packaging it up. Alright, we just finished up. So I think we ended up with about 50 pounds of ground beef and 4 or 5 steaks and another 4 or 5 roasts. So I hope y'all learned something. Hope I could teach you. If there's anything y'all do different, let me know. Put it down in the comments. If there's anything you think I could do to make my process better, let me know. I'm always willing to learn. And that's about it. Hope y'all enjoyed.